mainstream media is so corruptible, and it's all corruptible because it's money behind it. It's all these corporations and these interests of these corporations that really are being pushed and being paid for, and they're getting what they're paying for. They, with the older generation who might have grown up with this kind of journalism, on TV, respect it, and a lot of times probably only need to hear things once, and they just start to believe it, which has now become some kind of, symbolism of brainwash. Mainstream media might as well be the symbolism of brainwash, and that fourth branch of the government that keeps all of our interests that we want off their backs, so that we can continue to be an apathetic society that doesn't challenge their process or progress, if you will. And anyway, now that I think people are realizing, that the government comes up short on everything they put money towards, everything they promise. They have these plans and departments that are going to come out and do all these great things for us, and they throw all this money into it. And I think we can finally come together and agree that the government has gotten too big and has been using all this money. And all this money that they're using is going into these departments, and we're only getting more in debt because of this spending. And so if you think about all these departments geared for us, and they're all meant to be for our benefit, if there's all this money getting thrown in there, then why aren't we all the rich? Like, what's up with that? There should be some kind of understanding that if all this money is being put into these things, you have to wonder where it's going. And I'll tell you, it's probably just going to the corporations, probably just going into the government again, getting looped right back into what they want to do. And it's just a big scheme for everybody to feel like we're getting things with these departments, when really all we're getting are these fixed incomes that continue mean nothing in purchasing power when the government continues to devalue our dollar. So anyway, this debt keeps going up, and we should all be rich because there's so much money being spilled into all these government departments that should help. And I believe that these government departments are just the excuses to funnel that money in and just make everything that they want in their interest to happen. And their interests have obviously become completely and directly polar, and there's a dualism here, and people want to call it class warfare. They want to call it all these crazy things, and it's slightly class warfare because of the way mainstream media comes in and segregates and divides all of us as a nation into these different groups that are fighting over this small piece of the pie that continues to shrink. And this shrinking pie is not going to be there if this continues to go this way. So obviously the government has continued to do the wrong moves. So if we can just take a step back from all of this and just think about everything for a second, and think about the benefit of our lives, and what we really truly want, and what we stand for, and what our nation has stood for in the past, and honestly under the Constitution still stands for, even though some of these things are being eroded very, very fast and rapidly. If we take a step back and look at these things, I think we can all agree that it's about time to come together. It's about time to rally as a people, we the people, and stand up for what truly matters, and that is our liberties. And Ron Paul has been saying it for the whole time he's come into this political world, and he just happened into it because he saw that our monetary system was being delinked from gold at that point, to which put a limit on what our government could spend. But they wanted to delink it so that they could continue to spend, and they knew that this spending was making government bigger, and they just saw an opportunity to get richer inside of this special interest groups that just continue to only seek their own interests. And we have to wake up and realize it's about time to stand up for our own interests, and that's the liberty that Ron Paul's speaking about. So if you haven't realized it yet, or if you haven't even given it this kind of thought, well, you need to do some research, and you need to understand what's at stake here. And it's our whole nation. It's our economic liberty as well as our civil liberties, and they're being eroded, and we need to stand up. We can't let this go down. This is probably the pivotal point in history where this is going to be looked back on, and either we stood up and regained our rights as people in this awesome experiment that our forefathers set forth. And you know what? The government, the big government, the way of greed, the dualism of the world is trying to pull us back into this top-down system that just wants to regulate and rule our lives and tell us what we should do from cradle to grave, when our forefathers knew what they wanted. They wanted to disconnect from tyranny. They wanted to disconnect from this top-down government, and they wanted it to be a bottom-up government. And doesn't that sound beautiful? That sounds like what we need. That sounds like what we should have. And we need to fight for it. So vote for Ron Paul. And if you're not going to vote for Ron Paul, you need to look into it and you need to understand what we're fighting for. The people that are passionate about Ron Paul, the people that go to his campaign and never leave, there's a reason. The reason they don't leave is they know what's at stake, they know what's at jeopardy, and it's being around the world, inciting hatred for America when we should be pulling those troops back and building up America. This is what we need to do. Come together. We need to come together. Alright guys, here's like a postscript for video, a little afterthought after I've already started getting into editing the video. And it really is, as I'm thinking about the words that I just said that you just heard, it's like we're in this pivotal moment that I was discussing, and we are the evolution of man. Like, there's been so many things that we can look back in history if we remember history in a lot of different ways. You know, we have people like John Lennon that started understanding these thoughts and was dealing with the government in a direct way when they were trying to not let him legally live in America. And there was a reason for that too, is because he had a statement that went against what the big government had. And you could see all along history where these people that have had these pure and righteous truths for the true constitutional government, they're getting pegged off here left and right. You know, you look at all the Kennedys, and you know what? For the Democrats, that's like been some of their most constitutionally sound candidates that they picked for president. And you can see what happened to John F. Kennedy. You see what happened to Bobby Kennedy. And then you know what? We had the biggest movement in civil liberties for the black people with Martin Luther King Jr. And you know what? That was one of the most beautiful things that you could have ever seen happen in any society. And I mean, you saw his passion, and nobody could ever say he didn't have pure and righteous truth behind what he said. And you know what? He was saying the exact same things. He's talking about this poor society that was being created. And you know what? He was gonna, before he died, pull this Occupy kind of Congress attitude with all the poor people in all the nation. And you know what? Just recently I saw how the Martin Luther King movement, because of the holiday, brought together with Occupy. And it's amazing because now there's even like anonymous on the internet that's practically going to be like an Occupy that's like for the technological and digital fight, you know. And you know what? It's just really all about this evolution of the mankind that we've become, and we have an opportunity to be this evolution to incite the change that can be heard nationwide, because it's all dealing with our economy. The global economy is falling, and it's all linked to us with our. Everybody's got the dollar as their reserve fund, you know, as the reserve backing of their own currencies. And if this is the case, that the dollar ends up falling because of all this crazy schemes that we've built up within Wall Street and special interest banking and just bailouts from the government now to even subsidize this kind of behavior. We need to become the evolution that we've always been seeing in our historical figures that we admire. And let's all just become these historical figures together and change things. And that's what I'm talking about, getting rid of the apathy. And Gandhi said it best, you be the change you want to see in the world. And if you really end up trying to go for that route and you go for that righteous view to be that change, then you are the opposite of apathy. You are creating what needs to be created and what you want to be created. So let's just think about that.